then about moderation. So this is going to be a quick live stream. I haven't been live on here for a while. And as you know, this is my personal YouTube channel. So if you want to see my other channel, which has been running for longer and is my business channel, it's called Marianne Hanson Counselling Service. I do live streams on there every single week. So I'm going to be going live on there in a minute. This is just something because, as everyone knows, Jim Rohn is one of my favourite motivational speakers. He's not alive anymore, but him, Neville Goddard, Alan Watts, every single day I listen to some sort of like motivational speech on YouTube. So this is 3 things from a speech that I listened to the other day. Is it 3 or 4? It was, you know, when you're listening to someone and everything they're saying you either can relate to, or you're thinking, right, I need to process this, I need to implement this. Oh, this is so like powerful. And I couldn't keep up with everything, so I just thought, you know what, I'll just take 3 of the things that I found useful and I'll just share them with you guys. And I'll probably at some point do a follow-up, maybe do another live stream, just talking about a few more of the things from the speech. So the first thing he talks about, this made me change my opinion as well, on my thoughts on this idea of rest. And he said that rest should only be used for recovery so that you can come back stronger. And how he was kind of going into it was saying that lots of people are always talking about resting. And you know, and the thing about it was the same day, I'm sure I was thinking to myself, there's times where I only need maybe 5 hours of sleep, and everyone talks about this 8 hours of sleep, but everyone has to function. Everyone has to choose what works for them. If I can get a minimum of 5 hours sleep, I'd say, then I'm fine with that. I can still function. If I get below that, I probably could still function, but I wouldn't be at my optimal best if I had like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, but I could still get up, I could still function. What he's really trying to say is that there's a time and a place for resting. There's loads of people that, you know, will go on holiday, take lots of short breaks, be lying up on the sofa, be getting up out of bed late, and that's their life, that's up to them. But what he's trying to say really is, what is the purpose of doing that if you haven't achieved your goals? What is the purpose of doing that if you still are saying there's things in life that you want to be or to do? Thanks for joining, whoever joined. So he's saying that only the main purpose of resting is so that you can recover. So say if you've worked, and this is just Jim Rohn, I'm not saying everyone has to agree with his way of thinking, because to be fair, he is not extreme, but he does go hard on this whole setting goals. He goes hard on the whole achieving money. He goes hard on the whole holding yourself accountable. You know, he said in one of his speeches, this is when I was in the Seychelles, I was listening to this, and he said, why we should make it the norm that if someone gets to a certain age, he said, if someone's in their 30s and they haven't got anything, they've got no assets, they've got no money, and they've not achieved anything, no goals. He said we should question them and ask them why. Now, I don't believe in that, because I don't think you should question anyone. That's their life, it's up to them. But he said that it shouldn't be seen as, okay, that's his opinion. But what he's really trying to say is what has happened in that person's life if they've gone from age 0, from birth, to 30 odd or 40, and they've not achieved things. That's just him, because he talks about success and he talks about achievement, he talks about wealth. So what he's saying is, if you're resting all the time, if you're focusing more on rest than you are on work, or you're focusing more on rest than you are on achieving your goals, then obviously you're not going to get those things. So he said, really, when you sleep, you're seeing it as recovery. So you're using it as, I need to have some sleep so that I can come back stronger. And then you use the time that you've had when you have rested to put those ideas into place, to implement things. And I love that. I love that idea, because sometimes I'll be sat and I'll be like resting. I wouldn't even be resting. I don't think how I function, like I'm not ADHD, I've said this, but I think I operate sometimes in that sort of way. Hi, Jake, or Jake, or I think your name is, where I've just always got ideas, always thinking of ideas. And even if I'm sat, like sometimes I'll have to like say to myself, right, put the laptop down, or put your phone down, or then I'll be writing stuff down in like my little journal books, or I'll be thinking about like the next thing that I can do, or I'll be thinking about what I can put into the business, or sometimes I'm thinking about video ideas, or sometimes I'm thinking about financial things. And I don't see anything wrong with that, to be fair. There's times where I'm even thinking, oh, you know, I wish I could stay up all night tonight so I could finish writing a book, or I wish there was more than, the other day I was saying, I wish there was more than 24 hours in a day. It's not going to happen, because obviously you have 24 hours. But I was thinking that because then you'd have more time to do more things. But ultimately, he's just saying, when you rest, think about why you're resting. Think about what rest is for. So that's his first a little bit of wisdom. The second one is about boundaries. This is a really key thing that he said. He said, every yes should have a reason, and every minute should have a purpose. And sometimes Jim just drops the little gems, and then you have to interpret it. That he did talk more about it, but what he's basically saying with the every yes should have a reason is that we need to stop saying yes to things. I've already talked about this quite a lot anyway, but we need to stop saying yes to things just because we feel we have to. If you don't want to go for dinner with someone, if you don't want to take on more work at work, if you don't want to do certain things, just say no to it, because he says everything you say yes to should have a reason. And it's interesting because just as that was happening, I was listening to that talk, someone emailed me and asked me if I could do this role where I could be the director of a counselling organisation, and I would be responsible for looking after the trainees who are on counselling placements. I'd be responsible for monitoring certain data in the organisation, reviewing things. It was a good position, but I said no to it. And I gave my reasons to the person. I told them that I've already got loads of things that I'm doing. I've told them that I don't really want that level of responsibility where you're actually directing the whole of the counselling service, because with that comes lots more headaches. I didn't say that in the email, but I said it was nice to be asked. But the point is, if there wasn't there wasn't enough of a reason, there wasn't a big why for me, because I'm already building contracts, I'm already getting work, I'm already working in the way that I want to as a self-employed person. So to go to an organisation and be in a position where you are work for someone else, but also the type of work you're going to be doing is quite extensive. I didn't want that. So it's saying, think about it. Sometimes instead of saying yes to things, stop and say, right, I need time to think about this. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Or let me sleep on it. That's a good one. Or I'm not sure I can say yes to this right now. Can I come back to you? So he's saying every yes that you make, everything you say yes to, whether it's yes to a relationship, yes to an opportunity, yes to whatever it is, make sure you're saying it for the right reasons. Make sure it's not just because you're doing it for the sake of it. And the second bit about every minute should have a purpose. I loved that. That is one of my best quotes I've heard from Jim Rohn. Every minute should have a purpose. Think about that. If you decided to live your life where every single minute of every day had a purpose, so you was never doing anything that you didn't know why you were doing it. You had structure. Jim Rohn is the master of saying all of this stuff around lists. He helped me so much with the lists, because he said, in the morning you think about the evening, and in the evening you think about the morning. And he said he does this thing about every night before you go to bed you write a list, which is what I do. Then he talks about having a list for the day ahead, having a list for the week, which I do as well, having a list for the month of what you want to achieve, and I do that as well, and then having a long-term list where you're just constantly, so even though people think, oh, that's a lot of lists, it does help, because it keeps you structured, it keeps you focused. When I look down and I see that I've got what I've got to do today, then what I've got to do for the rest of the week. And then when I only have 2 or 3 goals every month, so that would be, these are the main goals that I want to achieve, but it does help. Writing things down helps anyway, but Jim Rohn just kind of puts it into perspective. So if you have a purpose, every minute should have a purpose. It means, this is why when people say this thing of spare time, I don't know what spare time is. Like, I know the idea of like I can put time aside to do something, but I'd say the majority of the days I don't have time where I'm not doing anything, or where my day isn't, where I don't know what I'm doing next. So when someone says to me, if you got, when you got a free minute, or if you got spare time, I'll be like, well, no, because I've planned my day, or I know what I'm doing, but I can make time. So this is where, like, I think he's just trying to put it into perspective by saying you should have a purpose for your day, have a purpose for your life, have a purpose for your week, have a purpose for your year, and then you will get to the end of the year and you won't be sitting there regretting, like lots of people do at the end of the year, say, oh, I wish I'd have done this, or I haven't achieved this. You might still not achieve all of your goals, but you won't feel like you've not tried, you've not had a fulfilled year. Because to me, every month I always feel like, okay, well, what could I have done differently? What can I do differently next month? But I never feel like I've wasted time. So I think that's kind of what he's getting to. The third and final thing is the speech was full. I mean, this was 34 minutes of a speech. I've just taken the 3 things that I kind of stuck with me. There was probably more. As I've said, I might do a second thing. He said, comfort is the enemy of success. So he said, stop focusing on not wanting to be uncomfortable. Stop focusing on not wanting to be challenged. Stop focusing on not wanting to, feel pain. He said, what you do is you need to get out of your comfort zone. And lots of people have said this in different ways. You know, it's one of the biggest things that people talk about, is that you need to, get out of your comfort zone and that sort of thing. But for many people, they don't even know what that means. Because they're trying to be successful, they're building all of these goals, but they're not stepping outside of like what's comfortable. You're not gonna achieve wealth, you're not gonna achieve whatever it is you want to achieve unless you push yourself. And to push yourself means you probably have to get out of your comfort zone. There was times where, like for me, I'm not someone that is like, I don't mind about crowds of people, but to be fair, I'll probably go to places sometimes where it's quieter. I'll probably choose times. I used to choose times where it's more quiet. Now, because I was doing like a challenge last month where most of the time I just had to get out when I could, and it was quite busy and it was quite packed. What I learned was that, what's the problem? It's kind of like, what's the problem? It doesn't matter how packed it is. It doesn't matter if it's lunchtime and everyone's around. And even now, like on some days, I'll specifically put myself in the situation where I'm going to be in places where I'm going to feel uncomfortable. I'll choose places to go where I know that like the people are not like me, or where it's a bit fancy, or I'll choose something to do that I've never done before, because I want to push myself so that I feel uncomfortable. Because when you feel uncomfortable, you learn something, it teaches you something. So what he's saying really is, comfort is the enemy of success. If you're comfortable, you won't be successful. And I do agree with that, because I think people who have taken chances, people who have thrown themselves into it, maybe packed up and moved to the other side of the world, people who have invested all of their money into something. When you watch Dragon's Den and they say they've thrown everything into it, even if the dragons don't invest in them, it's still that fact that they've gone all in. They've invested, remortgaged their house, put all their savings into it. There's a chance that they're going to be successful. But yeah, so they're the 3 things from his speech that I can remember that I felt were really useful. So let me know, whoever's watching. I can see that people are tuning in on this live stream. Feel free to leave a comment, let me know what you think. Anyone that watches on the replay, feel free to leave your comments as well. And I don't go live, as I've said, on this channel as much as on my other channels. But if you feel like checking out my other YouTube channel, Marianne Hanson Counselling Service, feel free. I'll put it in the comments. I'll put it in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.